Alright, it looks like there's a video happening. Morning video. Yeah, it's the way it works out. It used to be all night videos, now it's all morning video. I don't know if it always was that way anyway. It's probably not true. Um, Walk and talks were during the day. Anyway, just a little bit of break the ice, irrelevancy, kind of a way of saying hello. Yeah, it's better than an intro, right? It's better than doing the same stupid redundant thing. Okay. Wise monkey. So anyway, the wise, there's history with some of these people. So the wise monkey's been around a long time. Did like his videos. He has like videos that are like 8 years old of fish swimming in a fish tank. And in my youth, I used to raise fish, tropical fish. And yeah, I liked fish. I liked watching a fish tank. It was interesting to watch the little fish. So anyway, so I like that about him. But everything else, anyway, we've had our arguments. But anyway, hey dude, I tell you what, love it. Smiley face. All right, well that doesn't say much. Should say good physics or something. A way to protect sanity and reasonableness. See, I said sanity first, and that's probably the wrong way to do this. So something I might talk about after I get through the comments, if there's an after I get through the comments. Bill Gates did his part 2 on Ken Wheeler, and he sort of tried to make defenses for his ad hominem attacks against Ken Wheeler, and he did a very poor job, and then played a game with the word idiot and the fact that they changed that to profoundly retarded, and then subsequently changed that to just happily missing brain cells or something. Happily brain cell deficient or something. But anyway, as if some of these physics arguments, I would argue that there's dishonesty, and that should be despised by any scientist. When another scientist is being dishonest, scientist in the sense of somebody attempting to do this, I'm going to give you a reasonable description of a reality. I'm going to try to make a factual statement. And they overtly make the factual statement knowing what they're saying is not necessarily factual. That they already have information. They already have reason for doubt. And yet they're standing up saying, if the glove don't fit, you got to acquit. Like some shyster lawyer who knows the evidence indicates he's guilty, and they just don't care because they're trying to prove a point for some other reason, because somebody paid them, or because they have a personal bias. Now that you should despise. Now I can tell you quite honestly, there's nothing in what I say that is in any way dishonest. I don't hide from arguments that would say I'm wrong. As long as they're rational, and as long as they're put in some form that makes them acceptable, as if I should pay attention. As clearly stated, I'm not going to go spend months to debunk a very complex experiment, merely based on the accusations of somebody who says it's a perfect experiment or something. Well, you have to give me some indication of why this is anything more than any of the typical experiments that are way too complicated, in that I have to just trust the guy who says we did it, like the LIGO people. Why should I trust them? But anyway, so this isn't about somebody being insane because they disagree, because it's physics and it is complicated. But there is a distinction between somebody who's overwhelmed by complexity and somebody who's clearly knows better. Now, my argument about Ken Wheeler is he clearly knows how ferrocells work. He knows they're little bits of ferromaterial. He knows they're longer than they are wide. He knows what they look like under a microscope. He knows the patterns they create in the ferrocell, so he knows the patterns the ferromaterial's making is completely different from what we see in terms of the reflected light. So the distortions clearly are being created in the process of the light reflecting off the ferro material. The light isn't being bent by anything in the terms of the light's traveling and there's some sort of field that's bending light rays. He knows better, and yet he doesn't say better. And that's the part that makes him a criminal against decency. It's an indecent act when you proselytize, for example, a religion, when you really don't believe in it, and you just think it's good for people, like bishops do. Complete liars. They don't believe that God exists. They don't believe that hell exists. They don't believe in any of that crap. And they clearly prove it by their own behavior. They have no real skin invested in their religion. They gave up nothing for their position. We already know that. They were either running from their sexual identity or running from it as a subject altogether. Child molesting. I mean, clearly they don't believe in their God. And that is despisable. Okay, when you're just lying to other people. And Ken Wheeler compulsively lies about what he knows the truth to be. And he lies about, he's just, like I said, he's seen the magic trick. He knows there's pigeons in the sleeve, and he keeps pretending, no, it's metaphysics. The pigeons come from the spirit world, the metaphysical blinkety counter spatial internal ether fart space. It's horse shit. He knows it, and that's what makes him a criminal. All right, anyway. And to make statement. I've read every book on magnetism or some other horse shit. He makes these bold statements. Nobody has a definition of a field. All this kind of crap. When there are definitions. Now the definition can be shit, but there are definitions. Bill Gates is guilty of this one also, because he says no other theory deals with objects but mine. Well, my theory deals with objects. The D. Hilsters, even, their theory deals with objects mostly. I mean, they still have objects doing things where they don't explain how the object did the thing. Like, they still have a bunch of swirly crap going around magnets that don't explain how it swirls. And they certainly don't explain how it creates enough attractive force to create what we see in magnets. But anyway. And so the other standard would be, is just the fact that none of these people are willing to engage in conversation with people that could actually argue their crap. They'll have a conversation with somebody who's a neophyte and doesn't know anything, but they really won't be challenged by people who can actually understand what they're saying and can counter argue it. And that's just, again, criminal. All right. What brands? A great name? Yeah, no. Brand Z isn't too good either. Yeah. So you ought to give your mother a funny look. I think mothers usually make the decision one way or the other. Fathers just go, oh yeah, whatever. Shit. I couldn't say the word shit. Only 16 minutes in the video. Hilarious. You get it. Okay. Says Brands is Star X's channel is a great find. Yeah, okay. Well, that's a reliable source, right? Oh, wait a minute. No, I don't know anything about that source. See, so I really shouldn't say, hey, go listen to this Brands' guy. Because he knows everything. Because he knows I'm smart. It's not much of a standard. Okay, the Cole Panucci guy. So this is a guy who apparently, I thought this was somebody posting the link. See, they just post blind links, right? So he posts the link to the Electric Universe, and I thought he was saying, hey, look at this video, it's hilarious. They say they're not a religion, and yet their scientists are bishops in the popery, little Pope-anointed child molesters. Okay, that's an ad hominem attack. It really, you can still be a good scientist and be a child molester, so two things aren't related. So I thought it was go beat the crap out of this pile of steaming shit. And no, he was posting a link as if this is some kind of brilliant argument that they have evidence that physicists say, that they don't understand that gravity exists before an object shows up to fall into it. And that's the simple argument. And whether or not they can explain why it exists, okay, I'll concede they don't make very good examples of why gravity exists before something falls into it, but they do understand that the gravity exists before you show up to fall into it. The bent space is made. Okay, whether an object exists or not, the space is already bent. That's their theory. Now, they don't explain how it gets bent or how the bendness happens, because they have no explanation of the energy. So, like the virtual photon in magnetism, you can't say they have no description. They have some. Okay, they say, yes, there's a force carrier that looks just like a photon, that acts just like a piece of ray of light shining out of the thing. That's how the force acts, and it just has this idea of being plus or minus, or north or south, which is another way to say pressure, no pressure. And the fact that they can't figure out that plus and minus and north and south is a way of kind of saying pressure, no pressure. Yeah, it's very similar. Anyway. Alright, so let's see what he just does what the typical thing does. They just ignore the fact that I explained why you're wrong, and they're wrong. I explained your straw man. Okay, first off, the straw man is that conventional physics thinks gravity is a laser beam between the Earth and the Sun, and they think the laser beam only exists when the two objects exist, and the gravity doesn't already exist beforehand. Well, that's a stupid premise. It's just plain wrong. And again, this goes back to their head guy when he was doing a rag on Einstein's theory, and he was talking about how the equation has two objects in it or something. Well, yeah, the only way you can measure the gravity is to have the two objects. You can't measure it without a measuring device, and the measuring device is going to be an object that's going to detect. Okay, so it's like you can't detect magnetism without putting a magnet, essentially, in the field. So, fuck you, this is just a straw man, shithead. And I pointed that out. Alright. Einstein discovered something, alright. He discovered two Europeans from which he stole their ideas. So this is just more bullshit where, you're not going to give credit where credit's due because somebody used somebody else's idea. So because somebody invents the wheel, then that means they also invented the gear. And that means they also invented the flywheel. And they also invented every single thing that could be an extension of that. Now, clearly what Einstein did was put it in the simplest terms possible. So you can't show where somebody else put it in those simple terms. And so, I mean, this argument is kind of bogus in a lot of ways. And Einstein doesn't go walking around saying, yes, I invented all physics. No, I mean, I think he would clearly, if he was interviewed, he'd clearly say, yes, the work of Maxwell and a lot of other people is the foundation of my work. So this gets a little bit too petty, this kind of crap. The idea is both for general relativity and equals mc squared without giving them credit. So again, general relativity was an extension of the first version, which is the special case of acceleration. And clearly he spent years working on this general case. And the general case, in my opinion, was a huge mistake. So the first case deals with just one specific thing, acceleration, and mostly in gravity. And it's just kind of trying to say it's all equal. Like any acceleration is acceleration, and that's where he gets this idea of bending light and all of that crap. And then the general case has to do with the consequence of acceleration, which is velocity, and the fact that velocity is what dilates time. So acceleration creates velocity, but the acceleration isn't bending time. Velocity is bending time. But anyway, to say somebody else did it is just stupid. Okay, that's worth condemnation in the scientific community. No, this is just such a petty pile of crap. I mean, clearly he was the first to publish in a concise and articulated manner, and so you're just full of shit that he plagiarized somebody else's science. Intellectual frauds are not to be tolerated. So again, there was no fraud committed. Now, you think that everybody who publishes has to have a list of 6,000 footnotes to every single idea or source or indication, even bad ideas that gave them a good idea, somehow that should be in there. You know, like, you know, I just don't think so. I will go back and see what you said about the ferrocell. See, I mean, it's like me. You know, I thought of particle gravity without ever hearing of Lesage gravity. Now, a lot of people start accusing me of just regurgitating Lesage, and I'm like, well, who the fuck is he? I never even heard of him. So just because I came to the same conclusion first, their assumption is that somehow nobody could come to that conclusion, right? I mean, it's a 350-year-old idea, so clearly it doesn't take any modern knowledge to have come to the idea, to model it, to pretend. What if gravity was an external force, and what if it was made out of little meteors, ultramundane meteors? You know, there's no rule against somebody doing that, yet people just throw out the accusation that all I'm doing is stealing Lesage and modifying it. But the point would be also, I would argue that I clearly modified it in a substantial way by recognizing that charge has to be accounted for in magnetism. And so, you know, I've completely changed it in substance, in the sense that, you know, my box of crayons has colors. Theirs were black and white. You know, it's pretty different. Anyway, this is just bullshit arguments. This is when you don't have an argument, you resort to this kind of crap. Okay. That's worth the intellectual frauds. I will go back and see what you said about the ferrocell. Okay, well, what I did was demonstrate. Okay, so go back and look at, I took a microscope and I put the ferro material under a microscope and I put a magnet next to it and I saw what the material does. And when you see what it actually does, you learn something. This is what the little filings are doing, and they're doing exactly what they would do if they were iron filings. Not exactly, because they're in a fluid and they can move more freely, but pretty much the same idea. You get this radial pattern. All right, you don't get any swirly bits. Nothing's curved. None of that bullshit. It's all very straight line vector, very reminiscent of charge diagrams. And no flows, no movement at all. The stuff finds a position and stays there. You know, just as you would expect. And what I was going to say. Yeah, and then I took one light source and shined it into the ferro material and found, you know, the thing where the light curves like a little wing pattern, and each, wherever I put the light, I get the same pattern. So perpendicular to the light, I get the little swirly curved lines. And so it proves basically that yes, every LED is creating a line. So this is another reason why Ken Wheeler knows this is how it works, because he made a solar ferrocell, you know, one that didn't use electronic LEDs, but instead you could hold it up to the sun, use sunlight to create the refraction. And to do that, he had to drill holes that would duplicate LEDs. So clearly he knows that each one of the little curved lines is a perpendicular representation of an LED source. So there's as many lines as there are LEDs, in the sense that there's a line on each side, so each LED is creating essentially two lines, one line that intersects the center. And that's how the thing works. That's the reality. And I demonstrated it logically, and I gave sufficient proof for a reasonable person to say, yes, that's how it works. It doesn't have anything to do with this swirly crap. It just has to do with the fact that from one viewing angle, Okay, each ray is going to reflect from a different location, and it's going to end up creating a curved line, but there was no curves in any of the little bits at all. It's an illusion. Okay. Also, the electric universe isn't a religion. Well, I'm just saying it quacks like a religion, it walks like a religion, has horse feathers like a religion. It has every element of a religion. It's glorifying the past. It's completely founded by a guy who was a creationist trying to come up with physical reasons why the Bible talks about silly things like the sun stopping in the sky and stuff. He was attempting to say the Bible has credibility as a documentation of world history or something, and so he was trying to find dragons and bullshit, Goliaths and whatever else he had to account for. He was a creationist, so it's founded by a creationist, and you're going to argue to me it's not a religion when they have bishops doing their science as presenters. Get real. Look at how whatever that is, espousers of the standard model persecute dissenters. Yes, and to their discredit, right? But to some extent, it's justified because every dissenter looks like one of you assholes. Looks like a religious kook. I mean, the entire John Chappelle Society is just full of religious kooks with their solitons or some other kind of crap. They're doing metaphysics. They're trying to say there's an ether because somehow it makes more sense that God poured the universe into existence, than threw it into existence with a bunch of little pieces of powder. And failed to give credit where credit is due. And what credit do the dissenters, deserve? Frankly, their evidence sucks. It's always veiled in a bunch of straw man arguments. They keep arguing arguments that conventional physics isn't making. I mean, they say things, you've never defined a field, or, you have virtual photons. Yeah, they have virtual photons because they don't know. They just know the carrier has to look something like a photon. They don't know what the carrier is. So, if push came to shove, they'll admit that. Holton Arp was recently vindicated. You say so. But you'll hear none of the normal preachers giving him any credit. Well, you say he was vindicated by who? One of your bishops? Frankly, I think he was right about some things, in the sense that I don't think there's only one way to understand how redshift happens. Conventional theory is that a bunch of new space is created in between all of the bits of the photon. So a new bit of space expands, new bit of space, and that's how it gets redshifted. The little bits get pushed apart, all of them individually, as the ray travels. Some kind of notion like that. When even my elementary school understanding of redshift was, you're not stretching the light, you're emitting it at a different frequency, or you're receiving it at a different frequency because you're moving away, which means one bit hits you and then you're moving away, which means you're making the distance further, and the next bit hits you late because you moved away. There is no space created. So yes, the conventional theory is retarded, in my opinion. Their understanding of what's causing redshift is stupid. Alright. It kicks ass how well what you explain makes sense, and in so many ways just appears to be what should be and is common sense. Yes, it is, in a sense, just starting over and saying, well, let's take that crooked mile, let's take the 3 blind mice, and let's just say, okay, somebody was a little drunk when they reported that. So it's like just taking life, and you say, somebody gives you a God story, and then you say, and then somebody else gives you another God story, another silly story, and this guy, another silly story, and you just say, well, instead of me figuring out which one of these idiots okay, is talking shit, why don't I just say they're all talking shit and do it myself? And so, yes, if you just apply reasoning to all the evidence we have a big pile of evidence, and you just say, well, what's the reasonable explanation versus the one that the desperate people clung to? So, 100 years ago, they were sort of desperate to get this whole particle wave thing over with. And so that they decided to call it quantum mechanics and decided that they can get away with saying something like, well, sometimes it's a wave and sometimes it's a particle. And that made sense. Well, no, it doesn't make any fucking sense. It's a cop-out. They just said, we're tired of thinking about it. All right. And so then he says, this is hilarious, a bishop came up with the Big Bang. Well, not based on anything called evidence, right? So, and again, how have you proven the Big Bang? I mean, I could make an argument that the universe is oscillating, that there's no banging. The universe merely does this exchange. Energy gets trapped in matter, okay? That's the galaxies, the hot suns, all of this stuff. And then slowly but surely all that stuff does expire. That is, so the gravity goes, the pressure goes from being free, flying around, zooming in the universe. So when zooming in the universe, it's all free energy. Then there's a tremendous amount of gravity. Then a tiny speck has a huge amount of gravity. But as you condense and create all these little things that are smaller packages, like galaxies, that stores a whole bunch of that free energy. And so then that free energy, doing all that swirling and bullshit. And so there's less gravity. And the consequence of there being less gravity is, the galaxies end up getting bigger because they're falling apart, because gravity is slowly but surely being reduced by consolidating the matter. And so I could argue that the universe is just doing this yin-yang thing. It gets compressed, and then expands, and then it compresses, and it expands, but nothing ever bangs. So I'm just saying the Big Bang isn't proven by anything. What's the bishop's argument for the Big Bang? I mean, anybody could, probably somebody 1,000 years ago thought of the idea of it. They saw things pop in a fire. They could say, oh, hey, what if the universe was like something that just popped? It's hardly a, holy smokes, what a profoundly interesting idea. No, it's one of the blocks, A, B, C, F, G. Hey, there looks like there's a couple of letters we could throw in there, maybe. I mean, it's not something somebody couldn't deduce. What does it say about you? Doesn't say anything. I didn't say that bishops don't know how to wipe their ass, or they can't stand up straight. I'm not making some argument that they suck at everything, but what they really suck at is science, because they have an agenda, fuckhead. All right, they're trying to prove, like a shyster lawyer, they're trying to say their client is innocent when he's guilty as fuck. They're trying to say a silly fable made up by a bunch of dorks is reality, when it's not. It's just a silly fucking story. Oh, god damn. My God, you have no self-awareness. Well, no, I'm aware enough to know that I'm not a fabulist. Yeah, I don't fall for every stupid-ass story some douchebag comes up with. Ugh, because you're a doopy Borgite, okay? Yes, it sort of makes sense that you would say, I lack self-awareness. Yes, I want every Borgite to see that in me, okay? Because you are the exact opposite of me. I am a rational person who doesn't believe every piece of crap that comes out of a fucking human being's mouth, and apparently you do, as long as it's a child molester. Fuck you. Anyway, Mr. Keebler, I was hoping that you would confront the Electric Universe Church. Yes, it's just Scientology. I mean, it's just volcano bullshit. I mean, they even have, they really should just write a Dianetics. Because it doesn't have, they think the ancient people were all civilized and loved everybody and everything was wonderful and they were so sophisticated that they were all Atlanteans. The lost city of Atlantis. It's just such a pile of crap. All right, thank you, Gary. All right, and then Cole says, defend your claim that they're a church. They quack like a church. They walk like a church. You know, I don't know if they do child molest like a church, but let's see. That'll find out, well, eventually. Otherwise, I and people reading this will view what you're doing as religious persecution. Well, I don't give a fuck. I think religion should be persecuted. I think liars should be persecuted, and religious people are liars. And the electric universe is demonstrating they don't give a fuck about an honest argument. They keep misparaphrasing what conventional physics says, just like Ken Wheeler. They just set up a straw man and then knock it down, just like the religious people do. They pretend, oh, carbon-15 doesn't matter, this doesn't matter, nothing is no one ever proved it. You know, I ain't related to no minky. Yeah, brilliant arguments of heretics. Because say what you will about the EU. Yes, I'm saying what I will, and what I will to say is you're using false arguments in the first place, straw man arguments, and your science sucks in the sense that you don't have any evidence that electricity can travel through empty space in any coherent form. And as a plasma, it's going to move much slower than lightning, okay, because lightning isn't having to create its pathway by actually moving atoms. The atoms are already in the atmosphere, and all it does is polarize them so it can shoot the electricity through them like a conductor. It makes a conductor in the atmosphere. And clearly in space, to make the conductor, you don't have a bunch of atoms you can already use to shoot your electricity, so you actually have to move the atoms, and the atoms move at an insanely slow speed. So the whole thing is crap. It's theoretically impossible, your stupid EU bullshit. Its arguments are still as sound and valid as what? They're clearly debunkable. Your false premise is easily pointed out. Conventional science doesn't say gravity isn't already created by the mass existing itself, and it says the force that the gravity that you fall into isn't the gravity your body creates, or how else to put it, that it inspires or something. You don't inspire the gravity you fall into. You create the gravity somebody else will fall into. So, as I pointed out, if the moon collides with the Earth, the Earth is going to gain mass, and it's going to become more gravitational. So the amount of gravity the Earth will have will increase, clearly indicating that the matter being part of something is what's creating the gravity that something else will fall into. So, I can't, you just don't have any facts here. Its arguments are still as sound and valid. So there's no validity to claiming gravity moves faster than the speed of light, because you can't measure gravity that way, because obviously you're measuring something that already exists. And the time it takes for something to fall in, that you can recognize. We already know that the moon isn't creating Earth gravity because the moon isn't in the Earth, right? So the combination of the Earth's gravity and the moon's gravity are still separate gravities. And it's not until the moon becomes part of the Earth that it can be said it exists as a force that's being emanated. But we clearly know that it's not instantaneous. The moon can't become instantaneously part of the Earth. So anyway, it's just a stupid argument. All right, then the argument made by the Standard Model. Yes, the Standard Model is a pile of shit. That doesn't give you an excuse to misparaphrase that model, and like I said, it's still valid to say, well, even though they say, the force is already there before the object falls into it, and therefore it's in every location in space. It isn't in one location, and you have to fall into that specific location. There's no rule like that. The gravity is everywhere, so it wouldn't matter whether I'm here or here or here or here. It doesn't matter where I move to. I'm still going to feel that gravity, because the gravity I'm falling into wasn't made by me. It was made by all the objects that are on the Earth already. Now, the fact that they don't explain how gravity, the function of it, again, they call it bent space. They don't explain how space gets bent. But they clearly are arguing the space is bent by the sun existing. The Earth doesn't have to exist for the bent to exist. The bend already exists before the Earth gets there. That's the simple argument. That's their model, and you're just lying about it. Like I said, they don't give any details about how this space is bent, just like you don't give any details about how electricity could possibly travel between two celestial objects, and especially travel in any instantaneous form. All right, and especially when it comes to explaining, analyzing observational evidence. So this is just more horseshit. You don't have any observational evidence for what you're claiming. We have evidence of meteor impacts. We don't have evidence of lightning bolt impacts. So again, it's just horseshit. We have actual video of what meteors do. So this is just horseshit. All right. Cole had replied to my comment, as I can see in my emails, yet I came here and the response is gone. Well, yeah, there it is now. Okay, so it was thrown in the spam folder. So people recognize this isn't spam. Okay, he's making an argument. You're allowed to make arguments, and there's not like he's got anything horribly ad hominem in this argument. So I'd rather you wouldn't spam stuff like that. Yeah, spam garbage, but that's, he's arguing with somebody and he's making an argument that's valid. Supposedly, I mean, valid in the sense that it's in the form of a reasonable argument, even though it's not reasonable. Supposedly, Eddington experiment was performed in Chile. Well, yeah, we already discussed this. And as I pointed out, the problem with this eclipse in Chile is that it's very low on the horizon. So they're going to have to go through like twice as much atmosphere. So it's really not going to work. You just can't. You can't perform this experiment with an eclipse low in the atmosphere. You have to have one that's like the perfect one we had over North America, where it was 12 noon, where the eclipse was. Have you heard of any results? Well, like I said, they already conceded their failure before they even started, so I wouldn't expect whatever they come up with to be of much use. It's going to be tainted as marginal data. The only bullshitter here, so this is Cole again, here is you. So again, there's no quote the bullshit. Quote the statement I made that's bullshit. You coward. You're calling them wrong. Yes, I'm saying they're wrong first in their premise that the conventional physics believes that gravity is a laser beam or something. Yes, they don't believe that. When they're agreeing with you because you can't let them finish a goddamn claim. No, you're not agreeing with me. I don't believe in instantaneous communication, so clearly they're not agreeing with me. You're claiming gravity happens instantaneously, that it's caused by two objects interacting with each other. Yes, it is in the sense of some third object will be affected by that interaction, but just like the space shuttle doesn't fly through its own exhaust, you don't experience the gravity you create. You experience the gravity something else made. You don't cast a shadow on you. You cast a shadow on something else. The shadow is what you fall into. You fall into a shadow created by other matter. When you become part of that matter, you're now creating a shadow that something else will fall into. Shit. Alright. Let them finish a goddamn claim without being pompous shithead. Well, the point is I play their whole fucking video and people complain. I don't paraphrase. I don't talk over them. I pause the video and then I make my counter argument to what was stated. You, like a lying piece of shit, don't quote where I said something inappropriate, where I made a claim that they weren't making, that my counter claim doesn't have anything to do with what they're saying. Everything I said was purposeful and and to the point. And you're just making a grotesque statement that somehow there was shenanigans when there's no fucking shenanigans. I couldn't be more fair. I wish you would do that to my videos. Why don't you play one of my videos, and okay, you're too gutless to talk, put text. All right, pause the video. So let me play my video, pause the video, write a bunch of bullshit that somehow I did something wrong. Okay, point out where I did this terrible violation, where somebody said molesting children is fun, and I said something inappropriate like, yes, you're perfectly correct. No. Well, even if it's not about whether it's fun or not. Yeah, the point is it's not right. It's a crime against the child. It's irrelevant whether it's fun. Edit. In regards to their explanation and subsequent dismissal of spooky action at a distance. Well, obviously they're not dismissing spooky action at a distance. That's exactly what they're saying it is. They're saying it's some sort of instantaneous magical force. That's what they're plainly arguing. They're plainly arguing that gravity is instantaneous. That a force, that some kind of communication is happening way beyond the speed of light. They're clearly saying that. Then that's spooky action, you retard. Alright. I agree with Einstein. It's spooky action. There is no entanglement. There is no fucking faster than light communication. There's no force that goes faster than the speed of fucking force. It's not the speed of light. Didn't you hear me say that in the video, you fuckhead? It's the speed of force. Nothing in the universe travels any faster. You're asking for evidence before you even finish the video. More horse shit. Just absolute horse shit. I already know there is no fucking evidence, idiot. There's no fucking evidence. Jeez. Literally calling them names and making general claims about the character of Thunderbolts. Yes, because first their premise was shit, and their counter-argument was without any evidence. Okay. Character of Thunderbolt scientists based off statements they've made in one segment. No, I've played other segments they've done, and they're all religious, and they're all full of shit. Again, I played What's-His-Face when he was talking about black holes and all this other crap, and his critique of the mathematics was retarded. He's saying that somehow you can measure the effects of something. That is, for the formula to work, there has to be some element in the formula that's actually testing. You have to actually put a charge in a field to be able to say what the field is. So, yeah, it has to be in the formula. The formula has to represent the entire effect, and the entire effect isn't happening until something's falling in the gravity. So obviously you have to put something falling in the gravity to describe the effect of falling in the gravity. I mean, it matters whether it's, what it is. Oh, shit. When your Asperger's driven mind, so just more horse shit, you believe in fables. You think somebody who believes in little fairies living up in the clouds, oh, that's not a problem. But I have Asperger's? I mean, fuck you. Give it just a few more seconds. Oh, well, I don't understand. I gave what too little time? I played their whole fucking segment. You stupid fuck. I mean, jeez. What? I even played the end credits where they're doing all the la 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 pussy bullshit. I love you. You see what they are refuting and claim that you're attacking their character for affirming. You see what they were refuting. They're clearly attempting to first, again, they put words in physics' mouth that it doesn't speak. And, they just made a straw man argument. They made a fake premise that physics says when physics doesn't say that. Physics says the gravity's already there. Physics says bent space already happened. I don't have to show up for the space to be bent. The space is bent before I get to it, and I just fall into the bend that already exists. That's their claim, and your people lied about it. The claim that you're attacking their character for affirming. I'm attacking their character because their argument is clearly falsely premised. Another thing, I'm sure you haven't read every book of every physicist whose theories you mention. Well, I don't know how I can mention their theory without having some kind of knowledge of them. Oh, he's talking about reading the whole book. I'm just saying that if you're going to cite an assertion as if the assertion is somehow valid, like there's great arguments in this book, okay, that's one thing to say when you've read the book. But how can you say they're good arguments when you haven't read the book? I mean, it was a pretty vague statement, right? Well, here I've quote-minded Eddington. So we have an Eddington quote from after the Eddington experiment, actually. So the quote was from after Eddington had gone to Africa to attempt to validate Einstein's theory. So clearly the context of that statement must have in it a knowledge that, oh yeah, we don't have to have a speed for how fast space bends, because it's bent before anything falls into it, so it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant to gravity. So clearly Eddington's statement must have been in the context of recognizing that, oh yeah, bent space doesn't need a speed. I mean, clearly it can have one, but we don't have to worry about it because the thing that falls into it is falling into gravity already existing. The gravity the new thing is making, well, yeah, that has a speed. So it's going to take some time for it to make its new gravity. The gravity I'm making takes some time to make. But the gravity I fall into already is here. The delay is already built into it. It already did its delay. When I'm doing it, my delay will take a little time for the gravity I'm creating to be manifest. So it's going to take a little bit of time for me to absorb energy, for the thing away from me to know, hey, I just absorbed energy that should have hit you. And it'll take a little time before it knows that happened. Oh, okay, I'll make gravity by moving towards you and absorbing energy, and it'll take a little time for that shadow to get to me. Yeah, that takes a little bit of time. Obviously a little tiny bit of time. Anyway, well, I mean, it's 8 minutes from the Earth to the Sun. So it takes 8 minutes for the process of making new gravity. The Earth is making new gravity outside of the Earth's orbit. And that new gravity it's making takes 8 minutes to create. Or 16 minutes if you want to be precise. First, the Earth absorbed energy by moving towards the Sun. It took 8 minutes for the Sun to notice, hey, there's less crap hitting me. I'm going to move into the low pressure. And then it moves into the low pressure, and it takes 8 minutes for it to get as far, that new low pressure to get as far as the Earth. But clearly, as I've pointed out, it's as far as the Earth. It's the entire 180-degree vector that all the gravity is being sent to all of those locations. So the addition to the gravity is spread over that entire surface based on the entire amount of change in the motion of the Sun, and so the shadow is spread over that whole surface, so it's much smaller at each location because it's spread over a huge surface, a huge new surface. Another thing I'm sure you haven't read, it's not hard to break down an argument's soundness and validity based on the evidence provided. Again, we're all working with we don't have, this is a connect the dot game. Maybe we could agree on that. We're trying to connect dots. We have little pieces of information, and we're trying to see what the image really is. And so it's a connect the dot thing. And we don't have all the dots. We don't have really high resolution. There's places where I can't tell whether that's a dot or not a dot. It's almost a dot, maybe a dot. Yeah. So that's the challenge. Now I'm going to argue there's a ton of these dots, and we really should be able to do this if we're careful. And we recognize what, we can know from one side of the pattern to another side to another side. We can understand that there's context here and they're tied together. And so we can sort of see that these are trees over here and it might be trees over here. So when you kind of know these, oh yeah, these things move at the same speed, then these are probably the same kind of things. And so I have more resolution over here, so I can realize that, oh yeah, it's not a dog over here, it's a tree. It's a tree over here. Yeah, it's not a dog, it's a tree over here. So we can do things with the information that exists. And my argument to you is there's a bunch of fake shit, just like religious assholes. Conventional science is guilty of the same thing as religious kooks. They take some old fables and they will not let them die. They will not edit them. They will not change them. They will not undo them. They will not say that was horseshit. Then they just keep trying to force nonsense into the truth. And it's garbage. They made a mistake. It wasn't a dog, it was a tree. And now the frickin' connected dot image is completely broken because they keep saying, well, if it's a dog over here, it has to be a dog over there. And if it's a dog over there, it has to be a dog over there. And it's not. And that's the whole problem with their whole turning everything into wave crap, which was just bullshit. I mean, it might as well be your silly ether shit. Anyway. Character. Another thing, I'm sure you haven't. Okay, in fact, if you think you have to do any more than to understand a specific claim, then it's you who's an idiot. So again, what does this even mean? I'm not arguing understanding. I'm arguing the validity of the claim. I mean, clearly they've made two claims. Clearly they've claimed that there's some sort of evidence that gravity is instantaneous, which there isn't, physical evidence. Second, they're claiming that regular conventional physics says, that gravity is created by the object, not by the object feeling gravity is somehow important. It needs to do something to cause gravity, that the gravity wasn't already caused. The space wasn't already bent by the sun. The sun bends the space. The earth falls into the bend. The earth doesn't need to do anything. It doesn't need to say to the sun, make bent space. There's no obligation for the earth to communicate with the sun. The space is already bent. That's their claim, and you people are just lying about their claim. Alright, so more from Cole. And now you just made a statement of fact about photons interfering with waves. Now that's just a complete pile of shit. So you can't honestly paraphrase me either. So it's another straw man. I never said anything about a photon interfering with waves. Nothing. I'd never say anything like that. I claim photons don't interfere with a goddamn motherfucking thing on Earth except electrons. That's the only thing they can do. They can hit an electron and move it. And that's it. And reflect off of it. And get trapped between electrons. That's what photons do. They get trapped. So fuck you, the liar. Yet you don't state the experiment that provided proof of the fact. So this is a completely erroneous pile of shit. It never happened in the video. I never said any fucking such thing. And obviously I do not have to prove something I didn't say. You're a fucking liar. Okay. Something you criticize them for doing with a different statement at the beginning of the video. So again, no quote. So why don't you just quote the statement I made that was incorrect and wrong. Fuck you if you can't do it. Even though they at least provide the proofs. Now, they didn't prove anything. No physical evidence of anything that proves instantaneous communication between planets and moons, or planets and the sun, or atoms in the sun, or any of that shit. Just later in the video. Again, I played the whole fucking video. There was no physical proof of anything. Essentially, you hold people to standards you don't even hold yourself to. So again, another false premise, as if I said photons interfere with some kind of wave, which I never said. So just a lie. So you're just showing you're just compulsive liars. So just like religious people, you're compulsive liars, just trying to sell a pile of shit that you don't really believe in, and that you know the evidence doesn't exist, and you're just pretending it does because you want to believe it. We call people like that hypocrites. So you didn't prove the hypocrisy. I call people who make claims of hypocrisy without evidence, I call them fucking liars. You're a fucking liar. Prove the hypocrisy. Quote the hypocrisy. You fucking liar. Alright, fuck people like you. No, fuck you till you're fucking dead. People liars like you. Fuck liars like you. You know, may your fucking God realize you're a compulsive fucking liar and smite you. Alright, edit. Reading over the comments, it looks like you've done precisely what you criticized Dissident Science for doing. And that is having fake accounts views. Fake account views. So, where's the evidence? So you saw my video at some point where it had like 75% likes or something. Like it had 20 views and it had 15 likes. That didn't happen. So where's your evidence? You're making a claim. Now why don't you back it up with evidence? I backed up my claim against Dissident Science with fucking evidence. And clearly the facts are he hasn't denied the claim. And he did it on more than one video. Okay? It's not like it happened one time on Dissident Science channel. Okay? Where it happened just on one video where he had 15 likes with 20 views. It happened on every single video for months. And then it happened on his father's videos. And then it happened on the other channels that he's affiliated with. And it even happened on the Jeff Yee channels. So that never happens unless somebody engineers it, asshole. So, and where do you have evidence that that's ever happened on my channel? Ever happened once. So you don't even have evidence that it happened once. And you're saying those two claims are the same. You have a completely unevidenced claim, and I have an evidenced claim. So you can't tell the difference between an evidenced claim and a completely unevidenced claim. And you're lying, saying, I can't tell the difference. Because, yes, you can. Don't tell me you can't tell the difference between evidence and no evidence. You have no evidence. I had a pile of evidence. Alright, essentially you will be, okay, so hypocrite. Fuck you people. Okay, edit. Okay, it looks like you've done fake account views, up votes, and comment positively on your videos. So again, he thinks I'm Wise Monkey. You can go to Wise Monkey's channel and see the videos on his channel. He's a real person, asshole. Did somebody with no account make a positive comment? I mean, Mr. Keebler is a banjo player. You think I'm a banjo player and I put on a Mr. Keebler face to make videos? Is that what you think? Is that your argument? So Paul B, let's go to his channel. That's one of my sock accounts. Okay, let's see how much it looks like one of my sock accounts. As if I had one. So he has my video in his likes. He says new rules: Thai Empire versus Space Mariners Warhammer. Like, sure, I would somehow be affiliated with whatever that is, a video game or something. Interview with a Goldstein. Oh, does that make any sense? Okay, so yeah, but this is my sock account channel. This is what I do with my spare time, is this. No, I don't think so, fuckhead. I think you're a liar again. You're just making a false fucking claim. You fucking liar. You're just demonstrating how you like to lie. You know, that's it. Alright, where was this stupid comment? Oh yeah, we went down, so it's got to be up here somewhere. Alright, in fact, if you think you have to do any more than to understand... Okay, we already did that. That's the other comment. Where's the... Alright, here it is. Okay, and my claim that you are doing it can use the same justifications. Well, they're not the same justifications. Again, I evidenced my claim. I didn't make the claim because there was no evidence of the crime. There was a huge amount of evidence. And then he bought subscribers. I mean, it's just a fact. YouTube lets you do it. They let you basically buy subscribers. And so he bought 1,000 subscribers. It happened. It's a fact of history, shithead. That you used to say he's doing it. And the argument as a whole is equally valid. So again, he says arguments that have evidence are just as valid, are just as invalid as arguments with or without evidence. So it just doesn't matter. Evidence is irrelevant. No, evidence is fundamental to character. If you have evidence to make point your finger and make an accusation, then you have a right to make the accusation. If you don't have any evidence, then you don't have a right. regardless of either's soundness. So again, where's the soundness is exactly the issue. I made a sound, reasonable accusation. You're making an unsound, unreasonable, completely malicious accusation. You're just doing it to disparage my character, make accusations that I beat my wife when there's absolutely no evidence that I do. So you don't see how you're clearly the criminal here, using this as an excuse. You're using this as an excuse for you to make false claims about me. And your excuse is somehow I didn't provide evidence for my statements when I fucking goddamn did. So fuck you. Alright. I mean, yes, I should block you. Alright, the same post 2 of exactly the same arguments over again. So exactly the same arguments made in the stupid video. He's posting text arguments to exactly the same arguments. That what do they do with, what does conventional physics do with this dilemma that you can't possibly have gravity being created at this slow speed because everything would fly out of the universe? Well, again, bent space isn't created by the thing is falling into. It doesn't create the bent space. So again, you just don't understand that the Earth isn't bending the space it's falling into. It's falling into the space the sun bent. Dumbass. That's your simple counter argument to your false premise. And so again, I'll show you, they're just the same fucking argument. Both of them make exactly the same argument and provide absolutely no evidence for where they derive the instantaneous speed of gravity. They're just deducing it based on this false premise that gravity somehow is a laser beam between two objects. When that's not what gravity is in the first place. It's not a laser beam. And in the second place, the gravity the thing is falling into is gravity that was already created by the stuff there. The gravity I'm falling into is not created by me interacting with the sun. It's created by a guy sitting on a chair on the other side of the earth who's pushing into the earth and absorbing energy that doesn't get to me at the speed of light. And therefore, I fall into the lack of pressure he creates. You dumb shit. I mean, how many times do I have to make the argument? Counter-argue that argument. You pathetic liar. Okay. So then Mr. Keebler reposted what was put in the spam folder, so that's perfectly appropriate, blah, blah, blah. But I can probably delete that now that his post is back. Alright. Density determines weight, not gravity. So another stupid statement. I mean, it's stupid. I mean, density doesn't determine your weight, okay? I mean, I could put myself in a box. I could put myself in a box that's this big. I could put myself in a box this big. The two boxes are going to weigh the same amount, dumbass. So it's just stupid. Density doesn't determine weight. The total number of electrons and protons does. And clearly gravity hitting the electrons and protons is what causes your weight, your gravity, how gravity affects you, how much energy you absorb to be moved is completely dependent on how many little bits you have absorbing the gravity. So you're just totally wrong. And so you make this stupid 5-word statement that's with no evidence. You make it as if this is a truth somewhere, and it's just fucking idiotic. Density is a volume thing. Volume. Okay? Big volume, little volume, same amount of stuff. That's density. And the stuff is what's making gravity, the actual mass. So, you're just fucking wrong. I think you have to watch more of his videos. Okay, this is the Ken Wheeler horse shit. No, I've watched hundreds of his videos. To understand, he is totally different worldview. What does that even mean? Oh, you mean he has a starting premise of some sort of religious notions. Oh, and so that's how physics should be. Physics should start with a religious notion. I could go into my physical investigation of the world with a religious notion. You know, somebody must have made it because the only way stuff happens is somebody has to make it, so somebody had to make it. Kind of horse shit. You know. That's before you understand what evolution is, you know. Nothing complicated can exist unless a human being makes it. I mean, there's no light bulbs in nature. You know, some kind of crap like that. I mean, it's just, what sense does this make as a counter argument to the specific points I make against Ken Wheeler's horseshit? He makes claims. Light is bent. I can see the color shift in the light. I can do, and I point out how, no, you can't. Okay, that's not physically happening. You're misrepresenting the physical facts. And again, as I pointed out, he knows the physical facts. He knows what the damn thing is made out of. He has seen the trigger device, the little pouch that the bird is in. He's seen all the crap that's in the magician's sleeve. And yet he's still selling the idea that the pigeon poofed out of metaphysics. It poofed out of the spark of the counter space. He's still talking the horse shit. Again, he knows, if he's read every book on magnetism, he knows not one single one of those books ever describes an experiment where you take a permanent magnet and you can make something spin around it forever because of all the currents that are moving around the magnet. So he knows this current idea, wow, there's really no evidence that there's any currents moving. There's just no way to detect any motion. The magnet's not making anything that moves. So the energy has to be coming from someplace else, because the magnet can't be making it. It doesn't burn any mass. And we can't in any way detect all of this stupid motion shit that's supposed to be happening. So clearly it must be some kind of motion that comes from some fucking place else, and all the magnet's doing is filtering it. People are just so goddamn belligerently stupid. I mean, you're not doing this, I'm dumb on accident. You know, this isn't an accident. You're talking on your cell phone, you know, with your sunglasses on, with tinted windows, headphones. You're not paying any fucking goddamn attention. There's no accident here. You're just saying, I don't care about the truth. I believe in whatever. Fluffy bunny. Fuck you. So I'm gonna, I'll delete these. These are just, again, well, I'll leave the links. But I mean, they're just links to the same fucking argument. I mean, it's just amazing. The same false premises made, just redundantly spewed again. Oh, despicable behavior. Alright, so this obviously took way too long for me to get on to Bill Gates and his sort of bullshit. I was disappointed. He didn't do the explicit part 2 for Ken Wheeler. He didn't get around to talking about Ken Wheeler until he was 40 minutes into the video again. And he just made, you know, he's just talking like all the other whack jobs in the sense, I'm the only one that has a theory that does this in my theory, and no particle theory could ever. And he just makes these statements, and he won't answer the challenge that, well, yeah, no, you can make a particle theory that works. You can do this, you can do that. And because the guy you think should be doing it, because Einstein didn't do it, doesn't mean nobody can do it. I mean, man, you're just such shitheads. I have the only theory that has objects. No, my theory is all objects, shithead, and they're not stupid objects like giant fucking ropes. I mean, again, I don't even know why he thinks this is manageable. He claims that every single atom is connected to every other single atom in the universe. I mean, you can't even describe how many ropes that would take. And how does the tiny little atom, you know, tiny, make these even infinitesimally tinier ropes? I mean, the ropes have to be so tiny that how could they represent something like a photon? Because the energy equivalency would be a trillion times smaller in its impact on the atom than a real photon. I mean, a real photon carries real momentum, and it's substantial momentum. It moves electrons. And this stupid rope shit that are trillions and 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 trillions of times smaller than the electron, how could they possibly move it? Anyway, just stupid. Just stupid. Yeah. So he plays with the word idiot. I'll play with the word stupid. It's fucking stupid. It's stupid. All right. Till next time. And such. I mean, it's just like what they do with string theory, in a sense. They just create some fake thing that they can make elastic, and therefore create repulsion and attraction because they're creating something elastic. And so that's all he's doing. He's just saying, yeah, it's rubber bands. I mean, he's not explaining how the rubber band is elastic. Yeah, this is stupid. Okay, so till the next time and such. And so forth and whatnot.